Our last speaker needs no introduction. You remember her from receiving the JAG Award earlier this morning. But Dr. Erin Dunbar is going to talk to us about navigating clinical trials with confidence. And I love the title because I think it's important that I share a story. I met Dr. Dunbar in 2015 when I started out of fellowship, and it happened to be with an ABTA event. So I think it was actually 2016. It was in July in Atlanta. Her team was hosting the ABTA, and it was at the Atlanta airport, one of the hotels, and I got to meet her. And going back a little bit further, Dr. Dunbar was actually working at University of Florida before she went to Piedmont, and the job that I took was at the University of Florida. So we shared some similarities because I was coming into a place that she had left to, grow into a new center and build that program. And, I think without even asking, Dr. Dunbar really, I think, took me under her wing, and I think since then has been very supportive and helpful, giving me mentorship, help, even when I don't ask, and I'm always appreciative of it because it's words of encouragement. Maybe something happens at our institution and she knows about it and she'll reach out to me and let me know something and kind of, help give me confidence. So I saw the title and it made me think about, what she's not just done for her patients, but for other people in the field. And I think that's really important when you're first starting and needing people to support you and sponsor you. So I think for that, I'm very grateful for that and, really appreciative that I get the chance to have her present our last talk of the day. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Dunbar.
Can you hear me in the back? Awesome. What a privilege it is to be the anchor speaker. I want to thank everyone at the ABTA again. Again, Ashley, you've been so phenomenal. Ashley, you've been so great to get to know. Emily, Mindy, Nicole. I could keep on going. Debbie, of course, Kelly, everybody, you've been phenomenal. Phenomenal to me in so many ways. So we're going to have some fun in this last talk. All right. I want you guys to feel confident in your journey when you're navigating clinical trials and other things that might be individual for you. So I have no relevant disclosures, but I do want to thank again the phenomenal ABTA community, medical home, as well as all of those that support me. I want to use just a small public service announcement. I was privileged to work in hospice and palliative care realms. And I was at a University of Georgia big national conference and privileged to speak. I was listening to other talks and was blown away by a interdisciplinary meeting where there were priests, pastors, mentors, people from every single 360-degree stakeholder of, in this particular environment, children who had a trauma, drama, or something. And what was so profound in my life was that they were talking about, and not too dissimilar than maybe when law enforcement discharges a firearm, they have to have mandatory counseling, or a frontline firefighter has to have mandatory counseling. They were all talking about how pediatric social workers and doctors have mandatory counseling when there is a passing. And they all had grief counselors that were part of the funded care that they got. And I thought, I need a grief counselor. I need that support for all the transitions, right? So we're bearing witness to celebrations and joys and also tough times, and it's fatiguing. And so I decided one of the things that I did was I went out and got a grief counselor. So I encourage each of you guys to get a grief counselor. In my civilian life, I'm going to tell you that the way I think about a grief counselor in a true therapeutic relationship, number one, they have to have a skill set. They can't be your drinking buddy, your fishing buddy, your bitch and stitch buddy, your old friend from college. They really need to have a skill set. Number two, they have to be priest-confessional confidential. So my mom might glean something about one of the other siblings in my life, and how's Kathleen doing? She's fine. Fine, she's fine. And I'm like, she's not fine, Mom. Yes, she is. No, it exudes out of her that things aren't fine, right? So you really need that true confidentiality. It leaves that space, not at all. And then the third thing is that person has to not be intertwined in your life at all. So you guys met through my award, my wonderful husband, and if he is going through a challenge or a celebration or something, maybe a sick relative, and he asks me how my day is, I'm like, I'm fine, honey, how can I help you? Because I'm leveraging and I'm translating that relationship based on my love and care for him. But if it were a grief counselor, I'd be like, my day was so tough and I really need perspective. So I would say get any form of grief counselor. And I wanted to just say that at the beginning of my speech. Thank you. All right, so what in the world is standard of care? Well, standard of care is not crappy, shitty, no good. Standard of care is the most historically proven information we have at that time, with hundreds of thousands and millions of man-hours going into incremental knowledge, fundamental knowledge about where we are and what we can do for treatment. There are treatment guidelines by physicians and groups of people of great respect, medical societies, groups like National Comprehensive Cancer Network, who spend countless hours trying to get on the forefront what is the leading treatments to do. But not always, and not for everyone, not all the time. Sometimes they're FDA approved, but not always. So we've talked about in other spaces here that FDA approval is time, money, and politics. But that doesn't mean what is our state-of-the-art standard of care practice. So this is an example of NCC guidelines, one of the guidelines we look at, and it's meant to look like one of those spider plots that Dr. Lim talked about. If we look at each one of those, there are all these subheadings, JJ, MM, QQQ. There are thousands of references for each of the things or in a plus or minus part of this chart, because that is a mere modicum of the evidence that we're trying to lay out for all the healthcare workers trying to do the greatest good. And this is an example, once again, of where we talk about medical therapies for patients. You see on the right, it's, I have this marker. These are things we should steer toward or against. These are medicines that have had benefit. These are medicines that we have not, including 2 new FDA approvals for IDH1 and 2 mutated gliomas and histone aberrant tumors that have gone past initial treatment. We grow these lists and massage them all the time for our greatest good. So then what is a clinical trial? Well, one of my lifetime mentors, Skip Grossman from Hopkins, always called it a good idea unproven. I often will talk about people living their best, longest life and writing their own life story and their artistry and agency. So I talk about clinical trials as being a story still being written. And they are elective, self-sought, and people need to have the means, desire to pursue them. They require investment of time and energy by everybody, including the healthcare team. Don't be disheartened if you don't fit eligibility criteria. We talked about what's in your control and what's not. I want to let you know that it really is a protection to get science where it needs to be as fast as possible. We need safe and good treatments, and we need them as fast as we can. But they're also a protection for you. If we could identify that you're less likely to benefit from something or less likely to tolerate it, we want to move you to something else instead and not harm you and not waste your time. Focus on what you can be doing, and we're going to talk about that soon. So here's the reality. Despite our passion, the overwhelming number of trials are negative, equivalent, or non-inferior, which means that the investigational arm of a trial, people do either as well or not as well as the state-of-the-art standard of care arm. So in other words, it is not true that you will do better or can only do better if you're part of a clinical trial. But yes, it actually has a huge place in moving medicine forward. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Why seek clinical trials? Well, we all want to live our best, longest lives. We want to do something extra, pioneering and trailblazing. We want that evidence-based hope. So achieving incremental and sometimes substantial scientific knowledge gain, that's what clinical trials bring us. And altruistic. All of us have an altruistic part of our being. We want to make science in the future better for our children, our families, and the world. There's also a tremendous sense of personal accomplishment and pride that we all share. And a lot of us actually have this as a professional pathway and make a living. So what are the types of trials? Sometimes we call them studies or research. On the left, we have epidemiologic, and that might be, is there an exposure that leads to an elevated risk of a tumor? Or is there a heritable or genetic tendency that might portend a higher risk of a tumor? And then there's basic. It might be, let's study this cell and look at the markers and then try a whole bunch of things and see if anything attaches to or affects that marker in downstream signaling. And then there's translational, where we're using humans in small populations to help answer bold questions about safety and things that we really ask trailblazing pioneers to help us with. And then we have clinical trials that we all think about when we think about clinical trials. But I'd like to share with you that there's so much more than giving somebody a Bristol-Myers Squibb drug and giving it into you and hoping it helps the tumor. There's not only clinical trials directed at slowing down and controlling tumors, there's also symptom-directed clinical trials, and we're going to talk about those more. But it might be a medicine to lower fatigue or nausea, or a medicine that improves quality of life, or virtual reality that helps with coping before an MRI scan-anxiety. All of those are equally important. And then there's post-FDA approval trials, which might be a drug on the market. People are still studying, looking for not yet seen things that we need to know about safety, tolerance, and benefit. All of those are things you can participate in. So what are the phases of a clinical trial? Well, phase 0 is that translational data we were talking about. A few human subjects often learning about, well, how does the medicine get in the person? Does it metabolize in the liver or kidney? How is it stable? What is the route of administration? Can it be a nasal spray, a patch, a pill, an injection? Really, really early and important work. A phase 1 study is looking at basic safety questions. What's the dose? What's the frequency? Any information we have about how it metabolizes through the liver or kidney? Any side effects we weren't anticipating from our animal models or our translational? Phase 2 is, does it work at all? And that might be more about dose and frequency. Phase 3 is, how does it compare to existing state-of-the-art standard of care? And phase 4 is long-term follow-up. We have many medications, treatments, devices, equipment that in the first 6, 8, 12 months of their use, we didn't see longer-term data that we then later modified its indication and safety treatment profile. So I really want to talk about the basics of a clinical trial, because we say trial, study, research all the time. Well, there are a tremendous amount of participants. We think about coordinators and investigators, but there's an entire team of people helping. The trial question is incredibly important. No matter how sexy and provocative a trial might sound, if it's an early phase trial of discovery, we're still learning about, is it safe? Does it get in the brain? Does it have any benefit at all, right? A trial design is incredibly important. Is there a sham or placebo or sugar pill arm? What are they comparing it to? What is the trial made of? What will happen to me? How do I expect to feel? There is inclusion and exclusion criteria. This is, again, to protect the trial, our science, and you. We don't want to have you on any treatments that may not be as safe and tolerable or beneficial as something else that we can be helping you get on. And then a study calendar of events. I like to ask patients to say, paint me a picture of what life would be like if I'm on this clinical trial. Do I have to be there every day in the ICU getting every 15-minute blood draws? Can I take it at a pill in my own home? Can I travel? How often do I have to be at your institution? What is this going to mean for my caregivers? What are the limitations? Sometimes they say that you can't be on other things that are important to you, or you can't do other things that are important to you, or you can only get at one center, and that center is 7 hours away. And what about deviations? We hear about that word. It almost sounds like we're being scolded. Deviations. I got in trouble. I got a demerit. I'm in the principal's office. But really, it's important to know, what if I need to miss an appointment? What if I can't make it on that day? What happens if the trial is using radiation and the radiation has to be recalibrated for a day so they can't do it? Those are important things to ask about. And then, of course, there's a tremendous amount of mentoring and reporting. So also about trials, there's a lot about cost. Well, there are costs covered by the trial, and that's the investigational portion. They're trying to level the playing field compared to state-of-the-art standard of care. But then the state-of-the-art standard of care is covered by your insurance, like always. And then there's some costs that may be incurred by you. And so ask about financial assistance and ask about stipends. A lot of times it is what you ask for. And that's one of the key roles of healthcare workers, is to help you know what to ask for, and we ask for you as well. So a lot of people ask about the conclusions of the study. Well, first of all, you can disenroll at any time without penalty. We'll always be your doctors, we'll always care about you, we'll help you with something else. But you can disenroll for any reason, before, during, or after any portion of a trial, without any penalty. People ask about results all the time. They take a really long time, and they're confidential. If you even think about it from a business perspective, the investors and the companies are also trying to make sure that they have fiscal responsibility and longevity. And you're probably not going to know any results about you individually, your tissue analysis, or which one of you and which arm and how it worked out. You just have to give it up and say, that was my gift to the trial. So let's talk about if we're electing to participate in a clinical trial. I'm now speaking of from your perspective, or your caregiver's perspective. We will try to tell you everything we reasonably know about safety and general benefit from what we know about you, your health, and the phase of the trial. Well-established trial, mature trial, very early discovery trial, other health things, maybe are you on blood thinners, do you have other health issues? We'll do everything we can to tell you the likelihood. But if we could pick out a winner for you, we would. So we're gonna have choices that then we're gonna have to move down further algorithm. And that might be your goals, wishes, your fears, logistics, a pill or IV, home, ICU, how far is it away? What's the work required by others, like driving or medicine administration or device application? We're going to talk a little bit more about restrictions and limitations on another slide. And then strategy. We're going to talk about this more as well. Do I have the medical time to wait for startup? And is there anything about this treatment that might impact my next treatment? So now I'm going to talk about elective participation from an investigator or sponsor perspective. What are they looking for in us? Well, they need to know the details about your age, gender, ethnicity, sometimes citizenship and fluency. They need to know about your current health and wellness. They need to know about your medical history, including past malignancies, your full tumor markers, your steroid dose, your ability to be in an MRI, and many other things that are relevant to the trial. So once we've elected to be on a clinical trial, how do we monitor? Well, I encourage you to know your 24/7 medical and study contacts. Let everybody who's part of your team and tribe know those people. Have us on speed dial so everybody knows how to get in touch with those people. It is really important for your symptoms, safety, and quality of life. We're going to do appropriate exams, labs, imaging, follow-up, and we're always going to ask you in a safe space, do you still want to be on this trial? So everything that starts eventually stops. We move on to another treatment chapter. So what are some of those indicators of stopping? Well, one is, do you want it? This is your life and body. Do you feel well enough that you think it's worth it to be on it? You own that. It's totally you. The next one is it safe? And that could be related to the tumor, the treatment, general health, or a combination. Sometimes people feel fine on a medicine, but we know that it's just not getting the job done, the scans aren't looking as well as we hope, and we encourage us to move on to another treatment. Other times they're getting a great response, but their platelets or liver enzymes keep doing things different, or a symptom comes up like burping or low sodium or the fatigue, and we cannot outsmart that symptom well enough for you to be on it. Time to move on. And then lastly, is it getting the job done for the reason we started the trial? And that could be whatever pre-selected goal the trial was. Tumor improvement, improving clinical symptoms and functioning, or sometimes it's just that they only wanted to they want to do a 5-year analysis. They're looking for a 5-year go or no go, or the clinical trial pharmaceutical company goes belly under, or we can't get access to the drug. So there's all different reasons they stop. So where to search for a clinical trial? I can't encourage you guys enough to look often and always at the ABTA's Clinical Trial Finder. It is amazing. I want to let you know about 2 things. I put an arrow at the bottom to say that they do have language translation for a lot of the materials, and that's phenomenal. That's a wonderful gift that the ABTA does, so you can hit English or other languages. So what are the things that we would want to know about? Well, we need your molecular path report. And often at the bottom of that path report, it has a link to clinical trials that might be a part of your tumor marker analysis, et cetera. So if you actually haven't seen your path report, or your doctor hasn't shown you that report, or you ask them about it, go down to the bottom of these molecular reports and see what trials are listed for you. Government and civic organizations like the NIH, Neuro-Oncology branch, the search engine clinicaltrial.gov, other brain tumor centers, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, not-for-profits. Ask how they partner together. A beautiful relationship is how the American Brain Tumor Association partners with the Brain Tumor Network. People go to this site electively, they're starting to look for clinical trials, and then they partner with the Brain Tumor Network to have advocacy and navigation and support. It's beautiful. There are a lot of specific groups for certain tumor types. If you have an ependymoma, a meningioma, a melanoma, breast tumors, lung tumors, those societies also have very specific ways to help each of their constituents. And then third-party companies. A lot of people will say that someone in their family, loved ones, some benefit from their employer or insurance company. There are third-party search companies. Just be aware that sometimes they're just reproducing the data from clinicaltrial.gov on a fancy Excel spreadsheet. The goal is that they should be really working for their money and really helping to guide you. And if they're not, drop them, get other help. And third-party oncology advisory groups. Again, a lot of times I have patients say, oh, well, I'm with Aetna, and they have an oncology nurse navigator, and they gave me all this stuff, and then I'm sitting there in my office visit trying to help them through that. And then I want to say also that insurance company services are sometimes beneficial, but again, bring all of these things to your medical home team and let them help you understand what's relevant and how to go forward. In the addendum of this talk, I have very specific take-home resource toolboxes for you. I wanted to make sure that you and your healthcare teams know places that we go to search at 3 to 5 o'clock in the morning and on nights and weekends. Where do we search for you? I wanted to give you a toolkit. So where to find a brain tumor center? Again, a phenomenal ABTA resource. Again, a language translator, and I wanted to direct you to the STAR, a wonderful document born out of years and years of evidence-based research and discussion with national experts, guiding principles for finding brain tumor centers, spine tumor centers. Please look at that. It's amazing. So how to search for clinical trials? Well, I'm going to start off with saying anytime, ubiquitously, early, often, always, what should we be keeping in mind when we're looking for a clinical trial? Well, one would be, has my pathology been fully tested? This has been talked about a lot. How might that increase my chances of being in a clinical trial? Which markers on my profile should I be particularly attuned to that might bring open opportunities for me? Which ones might be things that I need to know about so that I can quickly know to help steer me away or toward things? Know your regional brain tumor centers because drivability is incredibly important. Participate in patient conferences and support groups, personally, virtually, across the USA. The world is flat. Get involved, be in the know. And know and make proactive plans about common restrictions to clinical trials. Treatments that alter imaging, like medicines that alter blood vessels, often called anti-angiogenic. An example is bevacizumab. Intraoperative radiotherapy, implantable devices and medicines, and certain types of focused external radiation. If one of your healthcare providers is talking to you about one of those, say, could this affect my future enrollment in a clinical trial? And talk about what might be the greatest good for the bird in hand, for what you can foresee. Steroid doses, certain herbs, certain supplements are not allowed in many clinical trials. So know about that ahead of time and manage if that's what you want in your life, or know that you might have to get off of them at a particular time. And often clinical trials, you have to stop tumor treating fields, integrative strategies, peptides, vaccines, and a lot of times you have to be getting an MRI, speak English, and be a citizen. So when you're actively looking for a clinical trial, well, contact the coordinator, not the physicians. It's a privilege to be in this every day, but I can't help people from Singapore and Brazil and Topeka, Kansas, when they're emailing me. That's not the way I can be of greatest service to you. Hit the coordinator up, and that is their absolute job. That is their job, is to connect you to clinical trials and see if you fit. Be efficiently screened. So what you want to know is you want to quickly rule in and rule out a clinical trial. And there's an art to that and a savviness to that. Ask them to paint you that picture of what would life be on the trial. Because sometimes it sounds like a really cool, sexy trial. You start to hear about it and you're like, whoa, no, I don't want anything to do with that. That is not going to fit me and my family. I'm so glad I asked about it and asked the tough questions on email. See if you can share all your imaging ahead of time, because you don't want to spend $5,000 going to a place and in 2.6 seconds they look at your MRI and you're like, you're not a fit. And you're like, why couldn't I have had my imaging looked at ahead of time, right? See if you can share it ahead of time. Ask them if they need your tissue, or do they need new tissue, and what are they going to do with it, and why is that important? Maybe you can send it ahead of time, maybe you don't want to. Can they screen you remotely, like emails and video visits? Ask your medical physician if you have the medical time to search, enroll, and start up. Sometimes at that medical change in chapters, you don't have the time. Sometimes you do. Trust them when they tell you. And then set up numerous visits with your home team so that this real work can be done efficiently, effectively, and within paid visits. I volunteer at work all the time. I live, breathe, and sleep helping people with CNS tumors, but I have to be able to do it in an organized way. And so really doctor visits are a place where we can get clinical trial searching and work done. So when you're actively looking, this is an incredibly important point. I hope you guys take this away and really build this all the time. It's almost like your go bag, it's what you gotta be thinking about and have prepared. When you're actively looking, I think this is probably one of the most efficient things that you can do. I know all of us physicians in this meeting talk about this often with each other, is ask your physician to make a summary for you that both they and you can use. Ask them to send it to their colleagues in regional brain tumor centers and at sites of particular interest to you, and have them share it with you so you can do the same. You can give it to the coordinators. You can spread it, and you can go find. And that's going to be key image snapshots, key words about your tumor and things that might be in common inclusion and exclusion criteria, your treatment history, things about your medicines, herbs, supplements, you and your physician's contacts, and a medical record release if needed. That is your golden ticket to efficiently be triaged for clinical trials. I don't know how many times all of us are waking up at 3, 5 o'clock in the morning looking at emails from each other, right, Ashley, right? For sure. So common times to enroll in clinical trials. Well, there are trials we talked about, symptom-directed, quality-of-life-directed, or registry. You can do them always across your journey. Look for them. Tumor-directed trials. Well, sometimes there are, like Dr. Lim talked about, sort of like pre-trials, preamble trials. That initial clinical presentation, I have an MRI, it might be a brain tumor, it's before the pathological diagnosis. Those are pretty rare, urgent, and complex, and usually they have to be right with your institution, right with your physician. They're very rare, but they do occur, and they are important. And then there's at initial diagnosis, and that is post-pathology but pre-treatment. And that is what we often call first line. It's common, but they are also rare, they are also urgent and complex, and it can be hard. Then there's after initial treatment. We might call in the maintenance phase or the helping or the surveillance phase. They're rare, but they're less urgent. And then at first progression, that's really one of the most common times that clinical trials are available, but they're often complex. They're not easy to get into. And then subsequent progressions are often common and, again, less urgent. So things to be aware of and prepared. Again, I'm just going to briefly speak to it. So at initial presentation, one of the biggest things is if someone wants you to do something pre-pathology, pre-diagnosis, you have a mass in your head, there's swelling, like, do I have time to be in this trial that might take an extra 2 or 3 weeks, or do something experimental? Am I medically well enough? Do I have the time? How might this impact future clinical trials or treatments? At a time of initial diagnosis, after pathology, but before you start any tumor-directed treatment, that's when you really want your pathology results to be known and shared quickly. This is your top priority. A little bit about pathology. Protect your path tissue. You don't want it tested unnecessarily for research reasons. Your tissue, you don't want it used for other things. You want it used for you. You want to be in control of your own tissue. And your tissue can't go around to more than one places. So sometimes people say, I want to look at 6 different clinical trials and they all want my tissue. Well, what happens is the hospital pathology office has to send it to places, then they have to send it back. It gets used up a little bit, looked at, et cetera. So really that's why when it comes to pathology, you must have your physician and pathologist involved in advocating and shepherding and protecting what happens to your pathology. And then at later times, again, there's many opportunities. So I want to take a moment and say that this is an example with Dr. Ashley Logan, a wonderful quality of life symptom-directed clinical trial. It's been out at the booths, but this is an awesome clinical trial from VCU about fearless in neuro-oncology. Please look this up. Please consider if this is right for you, and look for other symptom and quality of life trials. So what to be prepared of at first progression? One thing that I can't stress enough is that you have to know if it's truly progression to the best of your ability. A lot of patients are put on a second-line therapy and then they're sent to me for a clinical trial, or someone is calling it progression and it's not, or people are saying it's pseudoprogression and it is. So that is where tumor boards come in and brain tumor centers come in. Be aware of treatments that affect the blood vessels. We talked about that a few minutes ago. Be aware about treatments that affect imaging. Again, incredibly important. And then lastly, not worry, but anticipate and ask about if medical delays may harm you, because they may. You may have plenty of time to get into clinical trial, you may not. So if a trial is not right for you at this immediate treatment chapter, what are other ways you can do extra, individual, and nuanced things? Well, seek an individual and personalized approach. What can I do? What am I in control of? What are the things that I can add individual value? This is often a time to reinvigorate your team, both medical and caregivers, a really creative time in your life to really say, who are the people I want to be helping me make decisions? Integrative medicine strategies, I can't stress that enough. We just had a wonderful breakout session by Dr. Soma Sengupta. I encourage you to review it on the video if you weren't able to participate in it. But it is a treasure trove of additional things you can do. I've also put many resources in a toolkit in the addendum of this talk. Also, if a tumor-directed trial is not what you can do, what about a symptom-directed trial? We talked about medicines, quality of life, virtual reality. You can do them always, and they're equally important. So especially now, in this time where different people may not have a trial that they have access to, really talk with your healthcare team about finding a quality of life-based trial. They're equally important and often orders of magnitude easier to get into across your lifetime. Right to try pathways, I've let a lot of information in the addendum talk about what are the right to try legislations. Are they something that are relevant to you? Are they something you have access to you? And do they fit into your care journey? Expanded access and compassionate use, again, very important for some people sometime. I give you a primer about what the heck are they and are they right for me in the addendum. And then there are people seeking treatments outside the United States. And what you really want to kind of engage your healthcare provider is I know that you have a limited ability to interact or to be able to understand what might be happening other places, but join this journey with me. Try to shepherd my safety. Please try to interact with those out of United States entities and partner with me as I'm checking them out, and believe in me and know that it is an equally appropriate thing to be thinking about. So I'm going to end the talk here. I know we're kind of at the end and 1 or 2 minutes over, but I wanted to just thank each of you for staying here for the anchor talk. Please consider looking at this for a reference and share it with anybody and everybody at your local environments that you think might be able to help out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dunbar, for an excellent, amazing talk. We're going to have questions, so I think I'll start maybe virtually. If you want, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay. We don't want you to leave just yet. The first question, Dr. Dunbar, was, for clinical trials, I don't know how to find one, or when I ask, I'm shut down. It's not the right kind of tumor or grade or location or age. Maybe I'm wrong, but wanted to see what your thoughts are when someone says that.
That's an excellent question. I think that really, really well-intended physicians and medical teams, a lot of times it's time, money, and we're being told we have to see patients in 15 minutes and all this absolute insanity. And so I think a lot of times physicians and healthcare teams we're not quite sure how to get that all into a visit. And that's why I say, sometimes it's about getting extra visits and setting your goals up ahead of time and saying, can you help me, right? And really asking, I know it might not be you, but could you help me find someone who could help me find clinical trials? That ABTA trial finder, places like clinicaltrial.gov. But you bring up an excellent point. There are a lot of trials that are agnostic to tumor type. There are a lot of trials that say any solid tumor. Any tumor within the skull or the cranium, any tumor within the nervous system, any tumor that's recurred on this prior treatment or this prior drug. And so a lot of times it might be that someone that has a rarer tumor is finding one of those kind of global basket trials. It might be at a particular phase of treatment or after a particular prior therapy, or if you have a particular marker. But I think it's finding places who will advocate for you, and definitely ABTA can be a medical home.
Do we have an audience question maybe right over here?
Hi, I have a clarification and then a question. So when you were talking about the medication that you said try not to take because it interferes with blood vessels, and you gave a formal name, were you talking about Avastin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just a suggestion. We all call it Avastin. I don't know how many people actually know the formal name. I had to look it up. I was like, I think she's talking about Avastin. So just so you know, she's talking about Avastin. Because I was like, I think that's what she's talking about. So thankfully, my neuro-oncologist was, she was like thinking ahead. She's like, I don't want you to take Avastin because, I don't want you to exclude yourself myself from clinical trials, but I have actually found a lot of people get on it, and I'm like, not really understanding that what the future might hold. So what advice would you give to people who are on it? Like, should they have conversations with their doctors, kind of knowing kind of what the future might hold, and their possible exclusion from clinical trials, knowing that they're on Avastin?
That's an excellent question, and I appreciate you bringing up about the generic term. I know we have, believe it or not, we have national and international attendees and listeners, and it's called different things in different countries. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I'll use like the unbranded word, chemical name, so that a lot of people can find it. Like Temodar is called Temolol in many other parts of the world. Like cool stuff like that, right? But no, I appreciate that very much. So Avastin I use all the time because it can be life-saving to help with symptomatic vasogenic edema, pseudoprogression, et cetera. But like a lot of things, we talked about, what are your starting things, what are your ending things. It might be that the dose can be lowered or you can be taken off of it. So I think that some important points would be, if someone thinks you need it, I would really say, this is a time for the tumor board, this is a time maybe for a brain tumor center referral, because a lot of times there are alternatives, steroids, Boswellia, which is a herb. There are other things that might be able to be used instead of Avastin. And so that's really a point of elegance and advocacy for yourself. And then if you're on it, again, there's no like whimper warrior continuum. There's no shame like, oh no, I'm on it. No. It is a life-saving, incredibly powerful medication. But it's like anything. Can we go down on the dose? Can I get off of it? And helping the physician paint the story. Just quickly on that point is, a lot of times a brain tumor center and neuro-oncologists will reclassify. Someone comes to us with a progression and we say that's just pseudoprogression, and we were only using Avastin for symptomatic pseudoprogression, and we almost like reset their history because we can quickly get them off of it through the use of other modalities. And then not only are they then not at the progression standpoint, they're in a pseudoprogression, but also we are helping them so that they can be on clinical trials later that might have allowed Avastin and its other names for pseudoprogression, but not true progression. And I'll end with the hope of that, right? Because some people symptomatically need Avastin to save their life and to improve their functionality. Thankfully, thanks to so many of the investigators that you have listened to today and yesterday at this meeting and those at the prior ABTA meetings, we are aggressively asking the NCI, the NIH, pharmacy industry, biotech, to allow the prior use of Avastin not to be an exclusion. So our fights is that fight. Yeah.
I would add, so because I know Dr. Dunbar so well, I would just add that in those type of situations, clinical trials also look to say, if you are using Avastin for pseudoprogression, steroid-sparing purposes, radiation necrosis, they may still allow eligibility. So you have to just kind of look at what you're using it for. And the threshold to use, basically, when we look at someone's labs and we want to give them some sort of treatment, sometimes they may not be able to take chemotherapy or other trials. And Avastin, you can give it if sometimes someone's platelets are too low for chemotherapy, but they're still okay for you to use Avastin. So sometimes the questions that Dr. Dunbar might be dealing with the patient is, if I don't use it, I don't have another good option. So that may be why I consider it.
Absolutely.
Well, we got some audience. Okay. Here and then there.
Okay. I had kind of two questions, if it's okay. Oh, close. I have two questions. One is, I'm a participant in the All of Us program, which then I, gave my DNA to, so it's in a bank, whatever. Have you seen that starting to impact the studies that are happening now?
Yeah. One of the things about like doing things smarter, better is clinical trials are increasingly having many endpoints and many goals. And so they may have a part where it's trying to see if a medicine slows down a tumor, potentially another quality of life, like a patient-directed, symptom-directed endpoint, minimizing fatigue, and then also a lot of translational and basic endpoints where they're asking people if we can comfortably have tissue, cerebrospinal fluid, saliva, blood, DNA. Can we also even magnify the benefit of this clinical trial by learning even more? But absolutely, it's a great point. What's your second question?
And sorry, it takes my brain a second. But with the changes in the industry, or whatever we want to call it, world, do we envision eventually we'll be needing to go out of the United States, or some of our research will be leaving the United States, thus we'll be leaving to get our care?
That's a great question. I think what it's more symbolic of, in a more hopeful way, is that the world is flat. We are now able to travel, have international WebExes, unprecedented scientific exchange. All of us that have trained together go and practice all around the world, and we're friends, and we talk, and we want to have international opportunities. So I think a lot of it is just the fact that the world is pleasantly becoming international in a good way. And I think that there is so much to be hopeful in terms of discovery, clinical trials, and research, that we will get past some of these, immediate pain points and come out stronger than ever. I know it. Yeah.
Well said. I'll give one question, from the app, because I think it was voted quite a bit, but I'm going to reframe it because the question actually asks you what your thoughts are on the polio virus at Duke, which I don't think either of us can really comment on. But what I think we're getting at is, how do you have that conversation with a patient who hears about a study that seems really exciting, and they're asking you about some vaccine, some CAR T, some oncolytic virus that doesn't have all of the data yet, and they may not be eligible? How do you navigate that conversation with them?
I think that's a great point. We want every single patient and caregiver to be a voyeur of potential next line treatments. Like we talked about, searching for clinical trials all the time, early, often, and always. So that means that I'm bringing things to the visit and they're bringing things to the visit. So I will be courageous and bold and share things with them they may not have asked of me, things that I can foresee, things that I know are coming up, things that I want to advocate for them. And they're giving me information that they might have learned on the internet or a loving friend or family gave them. And so we're using that sacred time in the healthcare visit to say, well, let's talk about how this potential treatment might fit into your individual life story and your treatment journey. And if people are doing well, we say, okay, we got time to look into this. And what I try to do is direct them to people who can help and to try to mentor them as best as I can. I think what's so important about having that just very personal medical relationship with patients is sometimes I have to say, you have to trust me, this just isn't a fit for you. Or you have to trust me, we don't have the time for this. Or this is really early in discovery, it's promising. Or I could already tell them they don't have the marker for that or whatever. But you're doing well on your treatment. What are the things we can be doing now? But I think that if there is medical legitimacy, my job is to advocate for them to, as efficiently as possible, triage and build those relationships, right? So maybe, Ashley, we're looking to see if that location could do a virtual visit with them, or they could talk to the coordinator. And so we are there to be those advocates for them.
Any questions in the audience? Right over here.
Hi, it's a quick one, I hope. Can you speak to the difference between right to try and expanded access?
Yeah, great question. Again, great information in the addendum, but right to try is really first of all, congratulations to you and all your constituents that represented you in terms of a lot of individual citizens really legislatively advocated for wider access to medications that did not meet standard criteria for FDA approval. And so right to try often means that it's a legislative, a kind of unfunded mandate, so to speak, that allows more of a legal protection for pharmaceutical industries or hospitals, physicians, third payers, to say that if somebody has a life-limiting illness that's considered terminal, which is a tough space to be in. We are humbled not to know how long people will live, but if patterns are patterns, is their time shorter than we want it to be? They have to have exhausted all reasonable health treatments. And that's, individualized. And it's really then they have to then, in different scenarios with different treatments, still navigate to get access to it. But then if physicians and healthcare workers are following them, there is like sort of extra protection and acknowledgement that none of us know what's going to happen going forward. But again, I have lots of information about that. And expanded use, compassionate use, expanded access, that's again a really nice relationship with industry, pharma, biotechs, where they provide a medicine, treatment, or device with oversight in an expanded way. And they have on their websites, if you have this disease, if you have this diagnosis, if you have this issue, and you're not fitting into FDA criteria or state-of-the-art standard of care criteria, in certain circumstances, we're going to open it up to you. But a lot of times it's an agreement where also they're saying, could you be part of our registry? So even though you're getting access to it, can we also learn from you a little bit? And I do think that it is an increasing way that we are getting more and more options to people. Yep, absolutely. And I think your healthcare centers, your tumor boards, and your brain tumor centers are going to know more about those programs than potentially the individual medical or neuro-oncologist maybe potentially immediately with you. It might be that you need to actually do that when you're searching for a clinical trial. We'll say, we don't have an immediate key and lock clinical trial for you, but let's direct you to also some expanded access programs we're aware of.
The one thing I would just add on to that is just make sure you're having a conversation with your medical team, because for clinical trials, if you're enrolled, that experimental treatment is covered by the study. Not all of the hospitalizations that go into it and the monitoring infusion center visits, that is still built to insurance. It's almost never just covered by the study because the study can't afford to be able to cover all of that. With right to try, the insurers don't have to approve any of the treatment. So even the therapy that someone may try to get, and it's only in a study that's completed a phase 1 trial, they'll then have to potentially go out of pocket to try to get that drug.
Amen. Right.
Okay. All right.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Dunbar. We saved all the tough questions for you.
Thank you, Dr. Dunbar, for that incredible session, and thank you so much for being a partner to ABTA and really your family to us. Thank you. All right, we made it. We're here. Give ourselves a round of applause. All right, we're going to keep you for 5 more minutes. Before we get to our official closing remarks, I want to remind each of you to, now that you've attended the full 2.5 days here at our lovely 2025 National Conference, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your feedback. And on the screen here, you will see a QR code where you can scan it with your phone to share your feedback with all of us. We want to hear what sessions you loved, what can we do better next year, what would you like to see more of, whether that's more connections with each other, some more fun sessions like meditation or sound healing. We set the bar higher and higher. What can we do better? So we really do look at those surveys, each and every one of them. So please take a few minutes. It'll be about 5 to 10 minutes. And if you want, you can enter in your email. Of course, it is anonymous, but you'll enter in your email in the last field, and you'll get a chance to win a prize if you would like to be entered into a raffle. Additionally, I would like to let you know that our conference app, Huva, will be open for 3 whole months. So I know it was a lot of information throughout this whole weekend, might be a little bit to digest in one weekend, but these sessions will be available for a full 3 months to download the resources, look at the slides, you'll get a copy of the recordings, and then once the app closes, you of course can access the information on our YouTube channel. And also, I'm excited to announce that we will be back here in 2026 for our national conference, which will again be, of course, online and accessible to our attendees who do not live in the local area. As you see here on the slides, it will be Friday, September 18th through Sunday, September 20th. So we hope you love the conference venue. It is a beautiful space, and we would love for you to come back. Lastly, I would love to announce our winners. So throughout the weekend, we've had some contests going on this app. And so really quickly, our remote winners are Holly Connor, James Kennedy, and Shayna Prater. Additionally, our in-person winners, one had to go home, so she got it already, is Jacqueline Manella. She's still here? Jacqueline? All right, there she is. Congrats. And our other in-person winner is Sarah Stowell. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Stowell. Congrats. And then our remote winners, we will mail you your prizes. All right. Our conference would not be what it is without our wonderful co-chairs. They have just done an incredible job of balancing between the scientific and the quality of life sessions. So I would love to welcome them back up here to share a few remarks with each of you. You want to go first?
Okay. Give me a mic, I'll talk anytime. This has been an honor. It's been a privilege. Can we just give it up one more time for the ABTA, who brought us all together? I think what I want to end with, I already said my piece this morning, got me teary-eyed, but if you've been here 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, I hope you learned something new this time around. And if it's your first time, I hope it was everything and more that you had hoped for, and hopefully you will turn into that 5-time, 10-time, 20-time. You are our community, we are yours, and this has reinvigorated us to go home and continue to fight this battle alongside you.
Yes, special thanks to the ABTA, to Emily, Mindy, to my wonderful co-chair, to all of the speakers, and really to you. You are what inspires us to continue doing the work that we do, and we are working every day thinking about yourself, your families, and how we can improve not just longevity, but also the quality of life. And I think the conference talks and the way we set it up was to ensure that we had a good balance of that. As Emily mentioned, please use the feedback and provide it. Don't hold back, because even when we met at the beginning of the year to talk about the content that we wanted to put together, we truly valued the type of information that you provided from the year prior. So please believe that they take all of that very seriously, and the way we kind of move the talks and kind of decide what blend we want to have is based off of your feedback. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you both. I have loved that this whole time that we've been able to call them the Ashleys. However, I will say it's been confusing during our planning calls, because we're like, which Ashley? Thank you both so much. I'm really going to miss you throughout the year, but they deserve a break. I also just want to say thank you to my director, Mindy. She not only is my leader, but also my partner in putting together this event. So thank you, Mindy. She's there in the back helping our live streaming crew. And also I want to shout out my other team members, Vince Rock, who has been holding down the fort with our other programs and has really stepped up this year to help out with our national conference. Vanessa Flores, she's online. We can wave to the cameras. And then also our newest member of our team, who was formerly a volunteer, and she just came to the ABTA, I think a month ago now, a full month, Bree Salzman right here in the back. Thank you all. And additionally, we love to say thank you here. I'd like to give a shout out to Nicole Wilmerth, our Chief Mission Officer. Nicole, where are you? Are you here? Oh, she went to AARN. She's with the researchers, but she really fearlessly leads our whole mission team. So thank you to her. And last but not least, I would love to thank the leader of our whole organization, our president and CEO, Kelly Sitkin, and she's going to close us out today.
Thank you, Emily. I'm going to be brief, but I do have a few. We do like to say thank you at the ABTA. So first of all, to Ashley, and Ashley, thank you for leading such an exceptional conference. I know this took a lot of your time and your energy, and of course, you always ask busy people to do even more work. So thank you so much for everything you did and for leading this conference. As Emily mentioned, we have a wonderful team at the ABTA, and I really want to thank the patient services team for Mindy, all the work that you do in leading the patient services program. Emily, Vanessa, Vince, our new member, Bree, thank you. There's a lot of work that goes into this conference, a lot of hours, a lot of tears sometimes, but at the end, it is all worth it, so thank you all. To all of the ABTA staff that's here, our volunteers, our board members, and our platinum sponsors, MVAX, Chimerix, and Neuro-Onc Technology Holdings, it's your commitment that makes this conference possible and often and always meaningful. So I've been reflecting over the past 2 days, and what I have realized is we have shared science, we have shared stories and connections that reflect the strength of this community. But what truly makes this conference powerful isn't just the information, it's the dedication and the heart that each one of you bring when you come to this conference. Whether you're a researcher, a clinician, a caregiver, a survivor, and an advocate, you are the reason we move forward with hope. But I have a challenge for all of you as you leave here today. Let's not leave the momentum that we have generated over the past 2 days behind. Let's carry it in our hearts, into our communities, and into every effort to change what is possible for our patients and families. Together, we're going to continue to fuel the fight and fund the future. So on behalf of the ABTA team, thank you for being a part of this special, special community. Safe travels home, and we look forward to seeing you all next year. Thank you.